I was hiding on the balcony of a multi-million-dollar penthouse in Pacific Heights, trying to escape the suffocating small talk of another tech company party, when he found me sitting alone in the dark with my shoes kicked off and tears streaming down my face. I'd just gotten off the phone with my mother, who'd spent 20 minutes detailing exactly how disappointed she was in my quarter-life crisis and my decision to quit law school to become a freelance photographer. "Rough night?" he asked, his voice carrying just a hint of concern as he stepped onto the balcony. I looked up to see a man I didn't recognize at all, probably mid-40s, wearing an expensive suit that he'd somehow made look casual by rolling up his sleeves and loosening his tie. There was something magnetic about him, the kind of quiet confidence that suggested he was used to being the most interesting person in any room. "Rough life?" I replied, quickly wiping my eyes and hoping the city lights would hide the fact that I'd been crying. "Sorry, I didn't know anyone else was out here. I can go back inside." "Please don't," he said, settling into the chair across from me without invitation. "I was actually looking for an excuse to escape the corporate networking fest in there. Mind if I join your pity party?" If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow. "I'm Zoe," I said, tucking my legs under me and accepting that my hiding spot had been compromised. "And technically, it's not a pity party. It's more like a strategic retreat from people who want to talk about their startups and their stock options." Ah, a fellow refugee from the cult of Silicon Valley optimism. His smile was warm, genuine. "I'm David Chen. And you're absolutely right, the conversation in there is mind-numbing. How many times can you hear about disrupting industries before your brain starts to leak out your ears?" I laughed despite myself. "You're not a tech person?" "Unfortunately, I am, but I try not to let it define my entire personality." He gestured toward the party visible through the floor to ceiling windows. "What's your excuse for being here? You don't look like you belong in there any more than I feel like I do." "My friend Jess works here. She dragged me along because she said I needed to network and get out of my apartment more." I made air quotes around the words. "Apparently, my social life has become concerning to the people who care about me." And has it become concerning? The question was asked with such genuine curiosity that I found myself answering honestly. I've been going through some stuff. Quarter-life crisis, family drama, general existential dread about whether I'm wasting my life pursuing something impractical. What's the impractical thing? Photography. I quit law school last year to freelance, and everyone in my life thinks I've lost my mind. David leaned forward in his chair, his dark eyes suddenly more focused. "What kind of photography?" "Street photography mostly, urban landscapes, people in their natural environments. I'm trying to capture authentic moments, the stuff that happens between the posed shots." That sounds fascinating and incredibly practical, actually. The world needs people who know how to see things the way they really are. Something in his tone made me study his face more carefully. "You sound like you speak from experience." I spend my days in meetings where everyone is performing a version of themselves they think will get them ahead. Real honesty is rarer than unicorns in my world. He paused. "Can I see some of your work?" I hesitated, then pulled out my phone and scrolled to my portfolio. "These are just iPhone shots, not my real camera work, but..." He took my phone and spent several minutes scrolling through the images, his expression growing more serious with each photo. When he looked up, there was something in his eyes that looked almost like recognition. "These are extraordinary, Zoe. You're just being nice." "I'm never just nice. Ask anyone who works for me." His smile was self-deprecating. "These photos, they tell stories. That's not something you can teach someone." "Thank you. That means more than you know, especially today." "Bad day?" I gestured at my tear-stained cheeks. "My mother called right before you found me. Apparently, I'm a disappointment to the family legacy, and I'm throwing my life away for a hobby that will never pay the bills." "And what do you think?" I think she might be right. I think maybe I'm deluding myself about having any real talent. David was quiet for a moment, staring out at the San Francisco skyline. "Can I tell you something?" "Sure." "I've been in tech for 20 years, built my company from nothing, made more money than I know what to do with, achieved everything I thought I wanted." He turned back to me. "And I'm more miserable now than I was when I was broke and sleeping on friends' couches, working on code 18 hours a day." "Why?" Because I stopped creating anything that mattered. I got so focused on what was profitable and scalable that I forgot what it felt like to make something beautiful just because it needed to exist. So why don't you go back? To creating, I mean. Because it's scary to admit you might have spent 20 years optimizing for the wrong things. His eyes met mine. But looking at your work, it reminds me what I used to love about making things. David, I said carefully, can I ask what you do, specifically? I run a software company. We build apps for creative professionals, photographers, designers, filmmakers. My stomach dropped. What's the name of your company? Meridian Tech. The world tilted. Meridian Tech was where Jess worked. Meridian Tech was the company hosting this party, which meant David Chen wasn't just some random guy at a networking, even though was the CEO, the founder, the person Jess had mentioned countless times as the brilliant but intimidating boss who everyone admired from a distance. Oh my goodness, I breathed. You're him. You're Jess's boss. David's expression grew more serious. You're Jess Morrison's friend. You know Jess talks about me? Jess talks about you constantly. Her photographer friend who quit law school, who's struggling but too proud to accept help, who takes pictures that make her cry. He paused. She's shown me your work before, Zoe. I've been curious about you for months. My face flushed hot. She showed you my work? With your permission, she said. She wanted advice on how to help you get your career off the ground. David leaned forward. I've been hoping to meet you for a while now. Why? Because Jess was right. Your work is remarkable. And because he ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking less confident. Because I wanted to see if the person behind those photographs was as interesting as the images suggested. And? You're more interesting than I imagined. The air between us felt charged, electric. I was suddenly very aware that we were alone on this balcony, that he was looking at me like I was something worth studying, that my heart was beating faster than it should be for someone I'd just met. This is weird, I said. Which part? All of it. Finding out you're my friend's boss, learning that you've been, researching me? The fact that I'm sitting here having the most real conversation I've had in months with someone who's probably worth more than my entire family combined? Money doesn't make conversations more or less real, Zoe. Doesn't it? You could change my entire life with a phone call. That has to affect the dynamic here. David was quiet for a long moment. You're right. It does. Which is why I should probably tell you something else. What? I didn't stumble onto this balcony by accident. Jess told me you were coming tonight. I've been waiting for a chance to talk to you. What would you do if you were in my place? Tell me in the comments. The admission hit me like a physical blow. You've been waiting for me? For 3 months, ever since Jess first showed me your photographs, I kept hoping she'd bring you to one of our company events. Why? Because I wanted to meet the person who could capture emotion the way you do. Because I've been looking for a photographer for a project I'm working on, and your style is exactly what I had in mind. Because. He trailed off, looking uncertain for the first time since I'd met him. Because what? Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about your work, or wondering about the person who created it. I stared at him, trying to process what he was telling me. David, this is a lot. I know. You're my friend's boss. I know. You're 20 years older than me. 21, actually. But who's counting? You've basically been stalking me through my friend. That's a harsh way to put it, but not entirely inaccurate. I stood up abruptly, needing space to think. I should go back inside. Jess is probably wondering where I am. Zoe, wait. David stood too, moving closer but not crowding me. I know this is overwhelming. I know the circumstances are complicated. But can I ask you something? What? Do you feel it too? This connection? I looked at him, this man who'd somehow seen through my defenses in the span of an hour, who'd made me feel more understood than I had in months. I don't know what I feel. That's fair. But Zoe, I need you to know something. What? Whatever this is between us, it has nothing to do with the work opportunity. I meant what I said about your talent. I think you're exactly the photographer I've been looking for. But that's separate from this. What is this? I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out. David, I said carefully, even if I was interested, and I'm not saying I am, this would be incredibly complicated. You're successful, established, probably have your life completely figured out. I'm 24, broke, living in a studio apartment in Oakland, and my mother thinks I'm a failure. And what could you possibly want with someone like me? You really don't see it, do you? See what? How extraordinary you are. He moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the flecks of silver in his dark hair. Zoe, I've spent my entire adult life surrounded by people who are impressive on paper but empty underneath. You're the opposite. You're real in a way that's rare and beautiful and completely magnetic. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brave enough to walk away from a career path that would have made everyone else happy because you believed in something bigger. I know you create art that moves people, that makes them feel less alone. I know you're sitting here crying over your mother's disapproval, even though you're probably the most talented person at this entire party. David, I know you're attracted to me too, even though you think you shouldn't be. The words hung between us like a challenge. You're very confident. I'm observant, and you haven't stepped back even though I'm standing close enough to kiss you. My breath caught. Is that what you want to do? Kiss me? Among other things. This is insane. Probably. Jess would freak out. Jess wants you to be happy. She also wants you to pay your rent, which brings us back to the work opportunity, which you said was separate from this. It is separate, but Zoe, I'm hoping you'll consider both. I looked at him, this man who'd appeared in my life like some kind of fairy godfather with complications, offering me professional opportunities and personal temptation in equal measure. What exactly are you proposing? Professionally? I want to hire you to document our company's expansion into creative spaces, real photography, not corporate headshots. 6 months of work that would pay enough to cover your expenses while you build your portfolio. And personally? Personally, I want to take you to dinner tomorrow night. Somewhere we can talk without the weight of this party or the complications of our connection through Jess. And if I say yes to both? Then we figure out how to navigate something that might be complicated but could also be extraordinary. And if I say yes to the work but no to dinner? Then you get the work, no questions asked, and I respect your boundaries completely. And if I say no to both? David's smile was sad but understanding. Then I drive you home tonight and we pretend this conversation never happened. I walked to the edge of the balcony, looking out at the lights of San Francisco spreading below us like a circuit board. Somewhere in that sprawl was my tiny apartment, my pile of rejection letters from galleries, my mother's disappointed phone calls. And here, on this balcony, was a man offering me everything I'd been working toward and something I'd never thought to want. Can I ask you something? I said without turning around. Anything. Why me? Really? You could have any woman you wanted. Someone age, appropriate, successful, established. Why are you interested in a broke photographer with family drama? Because age, appropriate, and successful and established are just descriptions, not people. And I've dated enough descriptions to know they don't keep you up at night thinking about what they might say next, or what it would feel like to wake up next to them. I turned back to face him. And you think I would? Keep you up at night? Zoe, I haven't stopped thinking about you since Jess first showed me your work 3 months ago. If that's not keeping me up at night, I don't know what is. The honesty in his voice made something flutter in my chest. This is crazy. You keep saying that. Because it is. Successful tech CEOs don't fall for struggling artists they meet at parties. They do when the artist is you. David. I moved closer to him, close enough to see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. I need you to understand something. What? I've never done anything like this before. The work opportunity, the personal thing, I don't know the rules. There are no rules, just us, figuring it out as we go. And if it doesn't work out? Then we'll deal with that if and when it happens. But Zoe, what if it does work out? What if this is the beginning of something amazing? I looked at him, this man who'd seen something in my work that I'd been too scared to see myself, who was looking at me like I was worth taking a risk on even when I wasn't sure I was worth the effort. Okay, I said. Okay to dinner? Okay to both, the work and the dinner and seeing what happens. His smile was brilliant, transformative. Really? Really, but David, I need you to understand something. What's that? I'm going to need time to figure out how to tell Jess about this, and I'm going to need you to be patient while I learn how to navigate whatever this becomes. I can be patient, and if I change my mind, then you change your mind. No pressure, no expectations beyond what we both want. I stood there for another moment, looking at this man who was offering me professional dreams and personal possibilities in equal measure. Then I made a decision that would change everything. Can I see you tomorrow for dinner? 7 o'clock. I'll pick you up. I should probably go find Jess, tell her I'm leaving. Should I come with you? Not yet. Let me figure out how to explain that I spent the last hour falling for her boss. David's laugh was warm, rich. Is that what happened? You fell for me? I'm still deciding. But yeah, I think maybe I did. Have you ever had a moment that changed your entire career path? Share your story in the comments. The next evening, David picked me up in a car that probably cost more than I'd make in 2 years, but he'd changed out of his expensive suit into jeans and a sweater that made him look younger, more approachable. Dinner was at a small Italian place in North Beach where the wine was good and the lighting was soft, and we talked about everything except the obvious complications of our situation. Tell me about the project, I said over dessert, the one you want to hire me for. We're opening creative spaces in 5 cities places where artists and photographers and designers can work and collaborate. I want to document the process, capture the authentic moments when creative people connect with each other and their environment. That sounds incredible. It would be 6 months of travel, meeting artists, photographing spaces, and people in their element. Basically everything you're already doing, but with a budget and an audience. And you think I can do it? I think you're the only person who can do it the way it needs to be done. After dinner, he walked me back to his car, and when he kissed me goodnight outside my apartment building, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Soft, sweet, tasting like possibilities and the kind of future I'd never dared imagine. I'll call you tomorrow, he said against my lips. You better. 6 months later, my photography from David's Creative Spaces project was featured in Architectural Digest and 3 major photography magazines. The work opened doors I'd never dreamed of walking through, launched a career I'd been afraid to believe was possible. But more than that, David and I had figured out how to navigate something that should have been impossible: the age difference, the professional complications, the way everyone looked at us like they were trying to solve an equation that didn't quite add up. Jess took it better than expected, mostly because she said she'd been hoping something like this would happen ever since she'd started showing David my work. I could see the way he looked when he talked about your photography, she told me, like he was seeing something that mattered to him. And that, it turned out, was exactly what had happened. I'd found someone who saw my work as more than just pretty pictures, who believed in my talent enough to bet his reputation on it. And he'd found someone who saw him as more than just his success, who made him remember what it felt like to create something beautiful just because it deserved to exist. If stories like this inspire you to chase your dreams, make sure you're subscribed. I share one real story every single day, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.